Today, for our next project, we are going to talk about the elements of art and the principles of design. I'm sure you have heard these words used before in art class. We are really going to understand and define each of the elements of art and each of the principles of design today. Before we begin, I want you to think about this question. Why do you think the elements of art and principles of design are crucial to an artwork? Think about that for a little bit. As I think about this question, a few things come to mind. The elements and principles describe what is done in an artwork. Also, viewers can analyze what is going on in a piece and communicate their thoughts in a common language using the language of the elements of art and the principles of design. In a good artwork or an appealing artwork, an artist incorporates both the principles and the elements of art. Remember, if you do not have elements of art and you do not have principles of design, then you in fact do not have works of art. On the left-hand side of your screen are the elements of art, and on the right-hand side of your screen are the principles of design. Let's go over the elements of art because these are pretty simple to understand. The elements of art are the building blocks used by artists in order to create a work of art. The elements are line, shape, form, space, texture, value, and color. Below, you can see different images that represent each element of art. If you scroll your eyes to the right-hand side of your screen, we're going to dive deep and really understand what the principles of design are. On top of the elements of art that deals with individual objects, design principles are a way to give structure to design a piece of work and also give meaning to the piece. The principles of design are unity, balance, movement, emphasis, variety, pattern, and proportion. So, we are going to understand and define the principles of design on the next slide. The principles of design, these are the standards or rules to be observed by artists in creating works of art. They are how to create and organize artwork. When elements are utilized with the principles in mind, outstanding artwork is created. Let's talk about the first principle of design, balance. Balance is the distribution of the visual weight of objects, colors, textures, and or space. There are three different types of balances. In symmetrical balance, the elements used on one side of the design are similar to those used on the other side. In asymmetrical balance, the sides are different, but they still look balanced in a way. And in radial balance, the elements are arranged around a central point and may be similar. Let's take a look at some different types of balance. Here in this painting, you will see that there is symmetrical balance. Remember, symmetrical balance is when we have elements on one side and also on the other. You can see that at the bottom of this painting, there are different human forms across the entire bottom of this painting. That creates symmetrical balance. In this painting by Vincent van Gogh, we notice that there is asymmetrical balance. The sides of each of the painting are different, but they still look like they're supposed to be there and they are balanced. And in this photo of a stained glass window in a church, you will see that there is radial balance. Remember, radial balance is when the elements or the designs are arranged around a central point and they almost go in a circular motion. So these are the three different types of balances when it comes to the principles of design, and we can use them in any of our artworks. The next principle of design is variety. Variety works through juxtaposition and contrast. For example, dark and light, rough and smooth, etc. When an artist places different visual elements next to one another, he or she is using variety. So let's take a look at this painting. As you can see, there is a lot of different variety in it. There is light and dark color in the background. Another thing that the artist decided to do was they decided to create variety by using two different images. Instead of doing something just like a glass of water, they added a fork in the glass of water, which made it look more like it had variety in it. In the picture, you can see that there is variety in the different types of shapes that the artist chose to make. So the artist created a checkered board pattern in the background. And then instead of just leaving it like that, they wanted to add variety. So they created this sphere like object with the same pattern. So there's variety there. So remember, think about it this way. If you had a variety of different colors, that means you would have more than one. And so when we use variety in art, we work with different images side by side in order to create our artwork and make it look more appealing. The next principle of design is emphasis. Emphasis is used to make certain parts of an artwork stand out. It creates the center of interest or a focal point, which is the place in which an artist draws your eye to first. So let's take a look at some artwork that has emphasis. If you take a look at this painting, it's kind of silly, but the emphasis is on the man's head, which is almost like an orange, and your eye goes right to the head. In this photo, you can see that the photographer wanted to emphasize the eye of the model, and so your eye goes right to her eye as well. Remember, when you are creating emphasis, you're essentially creating a focal point. That's the point where you want the viewers to look first. Remember, your focal point does not always have to be in the center of your paper. It can be off to the side, it can be on the top, it can be on the bottom. So that's a little bit about emphasis. The next principle of design is movement. Movement assists with how the viewer's eye moves through the composition, leading the attention of the viewer from one aspect of the work to another. Movement can create the illusion of action. So if you take a look at this print, you will see that there is visual movement because the artist wants you to look at the entire picture or the entire artwork and move with the artwork and see every single aspect of the artwork by moving your eyes around the artwork. Movement can also be created by just creating patterns or different lines or shapes that lead your eye to different parts of the picture. Pattern is our next principle of design. Patterns are the repetition of specific visual elements such as shape, form, line, color, etc. Patterns are a method used to organize surfaces in a consistent manner. So when we create patterns, we are repeating consistent things over and over again. If you take a look at this work of art, you'll see that there are patterns within the shapes and the colors that the artist decided to use. You can also find patterns on floors, on tiles. Our next principle of design is proportion. Proportion refers to the size of the parts of an object in relation to another part of an object. It emphasizes how big or small something is. So when we take a look at drawing facial proportions, we will use different parts of our face to measure other parts of our face in order to get the scale or the proportions correct. In this funny artwork, you will see that the scale of the mini chick is so much bigger than the actual man, which is not realistic, right? But the artist wanted to kind of exaggerate proportions in this artwork. So you can do that as well. And our last principle of design is unity. It's probably the most important one, and it's the one that we use constantly without us knowing. Unity is the visual, pleasing agreement among the elements in a design. It is the feeling that everything in the work of art works together and looks like it just fits. So, if you take a look here, you'll see that, yes, there are men raining from the sky, and that is definitely silly, but you can tell that there's a sense of unity because of how many men are coming from the sky. In this artwork, it's an abstract art piece, and you can see that there's unity because all of these shapes and lines work together. So when we create artworks, we're always using Unity because we want things to fit and to be visually pleasing. With all that being said, those were the principles of design. They're very, very important in order to make appealing works of art. We want to remember these things because they help us become better artists and more advanced in our art styles. What we are going to be doing today is we are going to be creating a design matrix. Your design matrix will look something like this. There are 25 squares on your screen. If you want, you can print out this paper. It will be attached in the Google Classroom under classwork, or you can draw and write your own design matrix into your sketchbook. Your design matrix must have 25 squares. It also must have the words listed above and on the side of your matrix. So as you can see on the left-hand side, we have elements of art: value, texture, color, shape, and line. And on the top of our matrix, we have the principles of design: pattern, emphasis, variety, movement, and balance. Now, these aren't all of the elements and principles, but they are a majority of them. As you can see on the right side, it says unity should be seen in every square. So what you are going to do today is you are going to think about every square of this matrix. If you take a look at the first square on the top left-hand corner, you'll see that the word to the left of it is line and the word above it is pattern. So essentially in that square, you will make something that has a pattern with lines. You will do that for each of these squares in order to finish your matrix. Miss Farlow created her matrix, and yours will look something like this. Obviously, it won't look exactly like this because you're not going to be creating the same ideas that Miss Farlow has created. I want you to take a look and understand that every square is filled with what the principle of design is on the top and what the element of art is on the left-hand side. Let's watch this quick video that shows Miss Parlow explaining how to do a few of her squares in her matrix. Today we are going to be working on our principles of design and elements of art matrix. What you will need is a pencil and a Sharpie marker and any coloring supplies you have. You can use colored Sharpies, colored markers, crayons, colored pencils, etc. In order to complete each square of the matrix, you have to look at the left side of your paper and then the top of your paper. You'll see that on the left side, there are tons of different elements, and on the top of your paper, there are different principles of designs. So if we take a look at the first square in our matrix, we'll see that line is on the left-hand side and pattern is on the top. So that means that we are going to incorporate lines and patterns in our first square of our matrix. Think about how you can be unique and creative in each square of your matrix. I'm creating different dotted lines and zigzag lines to create a pattern within the first square. Remember, use pencil first, and then you can always go over everything in a Sharpie or a pen. And remember, color is going to be added into the color section of the matrix only. So the rest of it is mostly going to be black and white. I'm just still creating my pattern here. Remember, take your time. We will have enough time to complete this project. After you complete one square, pick another square to go to. I'm going to jump around. You can go in order. It's really up to you. So I'm going to look at shape, and then I'm going to scroll all the way to variety. Okay, so that's the third square on my shape row. Variety means that we add a lot of different things. There's a variety of different shapes in your square. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a few different shapes that are in different sizes, and that will show variety with shapes. So I incorporated different size triangles, different size circles. Now I'm going to head to another square. I'm going to look at texture, and I'm going to go all the way to balance. So I look at the left-hand side, and then I look at the top of the square, and I'm going to make almost like a window pane that has siding on the side of a house to show texture. Also, balance means that whatever's on the left side of your paper is also on the right side. So I'm creating a symmetrical design. And I'm just doing quick sketches here. Once I go over in my Sharpie marker, I'll get more precise and add some more details. But remember, when you're sketching with your pencil, it doesn't have to be precise. Let's do one more. I'm going to go to the color section. Now, the color section is going to have color, obviously. But for right now, I'm just going to be drawing in a pencil. So I'm going to the emphasis section as well. Emphasis is when we have a focal point and we emphasize where we want the viewer to look at our square. I hope you enjoyed this video. I am looking forward to seeing your work. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to use this as a tool if you need to look over something or if you're confused about something. You can always rewind this video, fast forward it, pause it, whatever you need to do. I'm looking forward to seeing your artwork.